All right, welcome back to the Justin Prince Show. My guest today is one of the most unique characters you're ever going to meet. This guy has this incredible skill to entertain and to make you laugh and to make you think and to make you transform and really to become the best version of yourself. So when I first saw Jason Hewlett, this got to be 18 plus years ago, right? And I'm at a company convention. There's however many hundreds or thousands of people in the room. And they brought in this comedian at the end of the kind of the session to entertain the crowd. This guy comes out and people are like, and myself included, like slapping their knee laughing at this guy. Like your stomach hurt when you're done. And I remember thinking, what a gift that this guy has. So Jason, man, I followed you for years. You actually spoke from one of my businesses, just only a couple of years ago. And you are one in a million. To say the least. And so just so honored to have this conversation with you and to see if we can pull out some of these incredible mindsets that you have and skill sets that you have and heart sets that you have that makes you you. So appreciate you being here, brother. I'm super fired up to have this conversation.
Wow, man, what a cool intro coming from a one in a million himself. It's been cool to watch your journey and to know that you're in the crowd. But then when I have to follow you, that's really bad, man. Trust me.
Let's just start right there. It was funny. We were kind of having this conversation. So the year of COVID, I believe, it would have been that fall, right?
Oh, yeah.
The year, it was 2020, that fall. He came and spoke for our business. And instead of everyone going to Cabo, we had this virtual event because, it was COVID and everyone, couldn't travel or whatever. So you can imagine everyone's a little bit bummed because they worked so hard to earn this event and then they can't go. And we did the whole online training, online presentation. I was kind of the closing speaker. And then after we did all the real fun stuff that everyone came for, which is Jason. And I thought you crushed. I thought you did an incredible job. But as we were talking, for you, it was one of your actual more challenging times. So I'd love for you to kind of share with us, that experience from your perspective.
Yeah, thanks for making me relive it, man. That's hilarious. No, candidly, I'm used to getting on a stage in front of thousands of people, making them laugh, making them sing. I do musical impressions and comedy and mixed with inspiration. But for this event in particular, yeah, they lost out on going on a trip. And so then it was like, and instead of going to Cabo, you get Jason Hewlett, an unknown human to come and make you laugh online and in virtual. And you know what? I remember watching you give like this powerful presentation and the people were eating you up. Like they loved you. The chat was just blowing up with good stuff. And I'm like, this is awesome setup for me because they're going to love me. And then I come on and everyone was like, hey, here's our awards. And instead of Cabo, your award is Jason. And I started going into my music and I had the whole virtual setup where I had multiple cameras and lighting and I was doing all my stuff. And man, I'll never forget while I was singing, I looked at the chat and it was not good. And it went from bad to worse. Like, this is our prize. Please never bring this guy back. Like, I couldn't believe what I was watching and I had to keep going, even though the chat was horrific. And it wasn't, there were some people that were like, this is okay. Just give him a chance, and eventually after 45 minutes or an hour, they kind of enjoyed me, but bro, that was COVID for me. Like the pandemic was, I have to come on and try to entertain people who didn't get the trip. They didn't get the experience. They didn't have the opportunity they expected. And yeah, man, I was talking about something I call the promise, which is, if you make a promise to your audience and you keep it, they love you. But if you make a promise and break it, they're upset. And I was literally essentially the broken promise of the company trying to keep the promise still. That was a tough spot to be in.
Let me ask you this. You're a pro, and so you finish like a pro and you keep playing the game like a pro. And to your point, you won everybody over 45 minutes to an hour after. Everyone's cheering. How did you build that skill to read those comments and you're in real time, so your head starts thinking like, oh crap, is there something in my teeth? Am I doing something wrong? We've all had this moment, right? We're doing our presentation or we're making our sales pitch or we're doing something. We're like, I think I'm failing at this. I'm bombing. How did you how did you overcome the push eject moment? Just like, I'm out. Like, you just kind of get in your head, how did you learn to overcome that and to finish like a pro? And then, to your point, to win everybody over at the end?
Well, I don't know if you're just being judicious and saying that I still did well, regardless. And maybe you didn't know that was what was going through my mind, or
I
that
did
I could
not know
even read
that.
the chat. So that says a lot to me, to the
You want to know
fact
what
that
I was actually thinking? Do you want to know what I was actually thinking? I
yeah,
was
tell me.
thinking, this guy is such a pro, because I literally was like, we're virtual, and it's been a hard year for everybody. It was just such a weird year. And I thought, he is crushing this presentation in a virtual setting, getting people to buy in with him. So that's actually what I was thinking. So it's so interesting that you were watching, you're like, what are we doing here? That internal dialogue was, kind of like, this is not awesome.
Okay. No, I appreciate you saying that. And here's the thing. I believe that what I was presenting was so good that eventually they should buy into it.
I love that.
And I knew, because I had done hundreds of virtuals
Mm-hmm.
and I had done thousands of live in person for 20 plus years prior. So why would it not be something they could enjoy, as long as I'm still willing to push through the awkwardness of what I knew was awkward?
I love that. I've thought the same thing. I've had presentations where I knew the start was going to be a little rough. I knew it, but I knew if I could if I could keep them with me, I knew at the end I'd have them, because the content was so rich. Walk us through that confidence. That's confidence in your competency, that you're going, the message is going to land. Did you
Beautifully
have
said.
some of those in those early years, 20 years ago, where you're like, man, I'm not I'm not sure if I have them now, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have them? How did you keep getting up to bat to build that competency over time?
I guess it becomes back to the fact that even yesterday I spoke to 300 job seekers after the governor of Wisconsin got up and spoke. And when I was done, the response was, I had people come up to me over and over, and they kept saying, I had no idea where you were going at the beginning. It made no sense to me. And by the end, I am cheering and I'm sharing you and I love
Yes.
you. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's been my entire career. I'm not the guy that gets up and wins you over in 5 seconds. And I wish I knew how. I mean, there have been moments where I could, but man, I'm mostly the go until finally they get it. And maybe I learned that from Steve Martin. Steve Martin's one of the hardest comedians to understand and get used to, but he used to say, be so good they can't ignore you. And so I just thought, Steve Martin would would do enough confusing stuff on stage until finally you just had to give in and get it. And that's where I think a lot of that comes from. It's probably just from reps.
That quote is one of my favorite quotes. You use that quote, the be so good at what you do that they can't ignore you. Another way I think about it is being undeniably good. You add so much value. It's undeniable. Like in your business, you add so much value, or as an employer, as a spouse, you're just undeniably good at what you do. And that is who you are. You are undeniably good at what you do. And I walk people through how you do it. You use music, you use impersonations, you use crazy faces, and you these kind of crazy faces, but then you're also teaching these really valuable principles. So if someone's never seen you speak, just kind of walk through what this experience looks like, because I want to lead into, how you crafted and found this gift that you have.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying all that. That means a lot. In fact, I need to put this in my will or something so that I can make sure it's played at my funeral. But I'll tell you, figuring out how to continue on even when it's difficult is a fascinating piece. And I found out that I could do a lot of different things as a kid. Music, comedy, impressions. It started probably in the third grade with Pee Wee Herman. La la la. Hey, everybody. Like dumb voices like that. And eventually it transformed into this thing where I could share it within a leadership speech at 9 a.m. about how to discover your voice, how to truly embrace the signature moves that make the people you work with stand out in a sit down world. And so I say, everybody has their voice, and how do we help them discover it? And as a speaker, I don't want to just stand up there and do some boring monologue. I want to present an entertaining engagement piece that they'll go, I was not expecting this today. It's probably a little early to hear him singing like that, but I'll say stuff like, what is the voice of Louis Armstrong? Somebody that's an icon, but is old, right? But I'll say, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And then I say, how would I impersonate you? What's your signature move? What makes you stand out as a leader? And if you don't share it, then you're breaking the promise. And that's my message, is the fact that we all have a voice that makes us unique. And I teach leaders how to identify, clarify, and magnify the signature moves of the people they lead. And it's a very simple thing, but it is something so many people don't even think about. We're always talking about, how can I teach you what you're doing not well? Instead of leaning into, hey, you have all these talents, you need to use them. And so my presentation essentially looks like I'm delivering music and comedy and impressions to open up your heart so that your mind can then accept that, yes, you have signature moves that I can't do, and I have signature moves you can't do. In fact, that's what I do say. I show them that I can do this with my mouth, and that I can do this with my eyebrows and my lip. And I say, you have talents I don't have, and I have talents you don't want. So you need to share yours with the world. And then they go, oh, I'm like a courage creator. That's all I am. I'm saying, I'm giving you permission to be your silly, stupid self so you can deliver your great promise to the world.
This is where I was hoping you'd go with this, because I have this question. So I want to go back to third grade and first grade and seventh grade and ninth grade and eighth grade. And it's the most awkward time of your life. You got braces and you got zits and you're just like, what's going on? And, I have these kids. My kids right now are 14. Well, my oldest, 20, 16, 14, and 11. And, kids can be rough, like those times can be tough for kids. And by the way, even as adults, we act like we don't have any insecurities. We all have our own insecurities. How did you pull these things out, or how hard was it for you to pull these traits and characteristics and this incredible magic that you have out as a kid? And because I think sometimes a kid could say he's weird or he's dumb, or they label you with these things. But yet instead of it crushing you, it became this superpower. This gift that you had became this incredible career, became this superpower. Did that happen as a kid? Did the kids look at you and say, what are you doing? Or did you win them all over? Or how did you use that and not let the gift and talent to be crushed? How did you let it be magnified?
Well, there's a lot of conflicting statements as to how I could illustrate this, but I can say that there were times when they would say, man, you're ugly, and I'm just like, what do you mean I'm ugly? And other times where it was like, wow, they're also laughing though, even though they're calling me ugly. And so I can choose which one to listen to.
Wow.
Right. And I can say, yeah, it's ugly and I'm never going to do it again. Or I can say, yeah, it made you laugh. So instead of putting it under a bushel, I'm going to put it on a hill for the world to be seen, and I feel like we have that choice. And unfortunately, so many of us, when someone questions our ability or that weirdness that we have, we do put it in a drawer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, so many people don't realize that's your cape. That's your superpower. Like, don't let that be stifled. And I mean, in reality, my man, there were girls that saw it that I wanted to love me and they did not like it. They were like, that is the grossest, ugliest dude. And, and what came out of that was like, there were beautiful girls that wouldn't give me a chance. And that made me realize, okay, what else can I do? What else do I offer? What else do I bring? So I became not just a funny guy, but also like, maybe I can be an artist. As I started drawing. And then if they didn't accept the drawing, I shaded their upper lip too much, like Napoleon said, then I became an athlete. And if they didn't like me as the athlete, then, well, maybe I can be a good speaker. And if they didn't accept any of those things, then it was like, well, I didn't get the girl, but man, I got a lot of talents.
Wow.
And I'm glad that I created for myself opportunity out of the rejection. And that became really a crucible moment for me in high school, especially when the girls that you want to like you or the people that you want to accept you drive you to achieve something that other people just won't. And it's a matter of embracing that and saying, well, I thank that girl for never liking me because it drove me to the place of getting to a different level of performance.
I've taught this to people that your weakness, that you say I'm too quiet or I'm too old or I'm too young. That weakness may be your superpower. And instead of leaning away from it, you actually lean into it. And I think that's what you did, is you just are like, you had the courage and the confidence just to lean into your uniqueness, which someone could say is your weakness. You said, no, I'm going to use this as my strength. And we were talking just as we were starting. It was funny. This is hopefully we don't digress here, but you guys will appreciate this story. So we were like, hey, where are you from again? And where are you from? And where are you from? And what school? And did you know so-and-so? And there was a gal that I said, did you know so-and-so at your school? He said, yeah, I knew her. He said, I had a huge crush on her. I go, I got to tell you a crazy story. So check this out. We'll omit her name, bless her heart. Right. So I had a little, I don't even know if you want to call it a summer fling with her cousin when I was like 16, and we would kiss and whatever. We were whatever. And we weren't boyfriend, girlfriend officially, but we kind of had this little crush. And then the next summer, I somehow had a crush. It like switched from the cousin to her, right? The gal that you went to school with, right? And so when I moved down here to Southern Utah, I'm at the gym one time, and there's this husband and wife, and they were there every day, and they were super fit and doing their thing, super cool couple. And I was there with my son, and we would work out. And anyway, one day I was, asked him, hey, where are you from? I'm from here. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Salt Lake. Oh, cool. Awesome. What's your name? Told me name. And now she has a married name, right? She's married. And she finally looks at me and she goes, you don't remember me, do you? And I'm thinking to myself, because Jason, I don't know if you have this even with like social media and stuff. Sometimes people will come to you at an airport or whatever. Hey, I've seen you speak, or I've seen you on social media. So you kind of just did that. Oh, awesome. Because you can't quite recall who they are specifically. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome. And all of a sudden my face just goes pale. I just go, oh, I haven't talked to her for 25 years, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I remember you. I'm like, sorry, I never called you back. So she just laughed. She goes, no, dude, it's all good. Anyway, you said to me that girl was your crush, and she actually in many ways changed the trajectory of your life. So we both had a crush on the same girl, it sounds like, but tell us that story. Like, even there's chapters of your book, she doesn't even know it's dedicated to her, but there's chapters of your book that she changed the trajectory of your life.
Yeah. And that was what's so ironic, is that here's this gal that, I had other gals that would be happy to go on a date with me or whatever, but then there was this one that just wouldn't, wouldn't get the picture. And I was a great artist. In fact, I was working towards being an artist for Disney. My great aunt had been a part of drawing Fantasia. And so I thought, I'm going to be an artist. So I drew a picture of this girl. It took me all summer. And it was an amazing portrait. I remember giving it to her at the beginning of the school year after dreaming about her the whole summer, and then she just kind of tossed it in her bag and didn't even say thanks. And it was like the perfect picture, and I essentially, she threw it away. I found out later that her parents had found it in the trash and they had framed it and put it on the mantle. And she never saw that as something important. But to me, it was like a life and death experience, is to have her accept that. And I tried to do other things to get her attention, be funnier, be a better artist, be a singer, be a speaker, be an athlete. Nothing got her attention. And I appreciated the fact eventually that she helped me drive myself to a point of saying, what else can I be so great at that maybe it would get her attention? And nothing ever was enough. And so then I realized, oh, this just isn't supposed to be with her. And it actually opened up the opportunity for me to go on dates with girls all over the entire city and go to other school dances, other places. And I became actually friends in circles with people like I mentioned with you about, we didn't go to the same school, but I knew people there because I was on the sports teams. I was driven to do other things because of a girl not wanting the thing that I brought. And I think that's beautiful. And yeah, there's a whole part in my book, The Promise to the One, dedicated about this situation with this gal that drove me to that place. And I'm grateful for those fails that turn into wins.
Love that. That's such a great story. What a fun connection. So I wrote a book called Be the One, and you wrote an extremely powerful book called The Promise to the One. So I know what the one means to me. What is the one to you? When you're speaking about the promise to the one, who is the one? And where did that concept come for you?
Man, I appreciate that. The one is yourself. And when it comes to the promise to the one, I believe that making a promise to yourself and keeping it is the ultimate level of being your greatest self.
Hmm.
And so I talk about the promise to the audience, which is as a performer, which I am, and which everybody is a performer. I say, you keep a promise to the people you serve, the people that are your clients or your members. Then there's the promise to the family, the people you work with, the people at home. But if we don't keep a promise to ourselves, that's when we lose confidence. That's when we lack integrity. There's all kinds of situations there. So that's why I wrote the book first on the promise to the one. People are confused because I'm from Utah and they think, well, maybe he's talking about God or something else. And, you could have some correlation to that, but I think the promise to yourself is extra important. And I do share the fact that I found out I had funny faces I could do, things that made me unique. And in reality, if I didn't share those with the world, then I'm breaking the promise to myself. And that is my authenticity. That is my signature move. And when I don't share those things, I'm like a performer in a concert who doesn't sing his greatest hits. And if you've ever been to a concert where the performer you went to see didn't sing their best song, you're disappointed. And so that's essentially what I'm talking about with the promise to the one.
In the signature move, talk about this idea of and to your point, it might be the signature song, but it's kind of the signature move. We have these gifts and talents. And I try and remind people that, if you remember this old Bible story about the parable of the talents or the gifts, right? One got 5, one got 2, one got 1. So lesson number 1 is they all got something, right? Maybe you got 5, maybe I only got 1, but we all got something. No one got 0. And then the next thing is the one with 5 did something with it, turned it into 10. The one with 2 did something with it, turned it into 4. The one with 1, if you remember what happened, they buried theirs. You say, why'd they bury theirs? They buried theirs not because they were a loser. They were scared they were going to lose the talent, right? And the moral of the story is this, that your gifts and talents weren't given to you for you. Your gifts and talents were given to you for the rest of us. And the way you give glory to the giver of the gifts is by magnifying or doing something with these gifts. So what does this signature move mean, that signature gift that you have? Kind of unpack that, of what that means to you.
Well, I love that you shared that story, the parable of the talents, because that's how I teach it as often as I can as well. One of my favorite phrases is, he is a slothful servant. And I used to go, Baby Ruth. Sloth, right? Goonies. All right. That's a weird one, but what does signature moves mean? I say that signature moves is how you stand out in a sit-down world. And I used to stand up on stage and say, hey, you're a leader. Everyone's a leader that is a worker. Everyone's a leader in this room. So what is your signature move that makes you stand out? And people usually wouldn't know what I meant. And I would say, okay, so if I went to a Michael Jackson concert back in the 80s and he didn't do the moonwalk, that's him breaking the promise and not sharing his signature move. So what are yours? Eventually, I realized that they needed a process in order to unpack it for themselves. We don't just have one signature move. We have a lot of them, that which makes us who we are. And so I came up with a process called the ICM process, which I wrote about in the second chapter of my book. And now I've taught to thousands of leaders around the world. It actually transforms the way that they lead their people and help them discover their strengths. So this is what ICM stands for: identify, clarify, magnify. So I say, try to identify all your talents, gifts, and skills, and you have to write down 100 of them. This is a really fun workshop because most people are like, I can't even write down 10. But if I said, hey, write down 10 things that you need to improve, they're like, oh, I got 20. So I'm pushing them to write 100 things that make them uniquely who they are. Then I say that now let's come up with your top 10 of that list out of the 100 you wrote down. The 10 that you really resonate with, that's your identify list. Now clarify is asking the people that you trust, that you work with, that you love, your family. Ask them what your signature moves are. What is it that they see in you that are your gifts and talents that make you unique? And even if it's just a simple text and you just say, hey, give me 3 words that make me unique. It's a fascinating thing because then you get a list of clarify from those people and you get 10 of those. So now you've got a list of identify you came up with, a list of clarify they came up with. Now you've got 20 words you can go out and magnify. And if you focus on one of those words at a time, my goodness, it's amazing what happens. Because if I see myself as Uh, let's say I see myself as an entertainer. Now, if I get a call from a customer who's upset with me and I'm identifying myself as the entertainer, I'm going to still be entertaining even if I'm ticked off by what they're saying as a client. So I'm going to still try to bring joy to their day because that's who I am. But I have to buy into the fact that I'm going to identify, clarify, and magnify that as a signature move. And so then if I don't share that with the world, then I'm breaking the promise. And if we don't share those gifts, then yeah, we're taking away gifts from the world that we are the only ones that can share. And so bringing the ICM process in is a really powerful thing. And I love teaching that in the workshops and speeches I do.
You just did it right there. You're an incredible coach because that's great coaching, right? That's breaking it into three simple words in a great acronym. They're all verbs. They're all very, like, even just, identify, clarify, magnify. Those are like, oh, I kind of get it just because the words are so good. But then even the workshop part of it, to me, that's a reinvention. And I want you to talk about reinvention because you became one of the best speakers in the world, and your speaking is an entertainment. So let's just call speaking and entertaining like what you were known for. You've also now become a really high level coach, which to me is it's a different thing. It's a different skill set. It's a different thing. You got to reinvent yourself in some ways. And then you've even reinvented a further step to become like a high level executive coach where you're coaching high level executives of people that are running businesses, etc. How was that transformation for you, that reinvention for you from speaker entertainer into coach, and from there into executive coach? And then how do you teach people to reinvent themselves? Someone's listening to this right now. Maybe their career's gone this far with who they are, but they really want to go to the next level and they need to reinvent themselves. How do you walk them through that? How did you do it for you?
That's a very complimentary thing you've said. And I appreciate it because starting as an entertainer in Vegas, I was a Ricky Martin and Elton John impersonator on the Strip with the Legends in Concert show. Next thing I know, within a few years, I'm doing a one-man show around the world, doing 100 different voices impressions for corporate events. And that's where you first saw me
Yeah.
doing that show, which was like the 9 p.m. show. Within a few years, I became more of a 9 a.m. keynote speaker for leadership, mixing in the comedy, the music. And yeah, those evolutions, those transformations, they all happen in, I think, a lot of careers for people that have a lot going on. I also would add to that I'm an author and, do the coaching now,
Mm-hmm.
and executive coaching has been cool. But I would say that for reinvention itself, you have to be willing to let go of what's been working and then lean in to know what you're being called to do even further.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, a lot of us hang on to that. My friend Dave Crenshaw calls it the Tarzan effect. Dave Crenshaw wrote The Myth of Multitasking. But, sometimes we go for a different career and we grab onto the next vine before we've let go of the last one, and then we're hosed. But the Tarzan effect can also be you hang on too long to the vine before you should be grabbing onto the next one as well.
Hmm.
And so I like to say, are you willing to let go in order to go grab that next opportunity? And oftentimes it's a scary jump. But I was asked by so many performers while I was entertaining in Vegas and doing corporate events, entertainers that were like, how do I do it? How do I start it? And I began coaching and mentoring in that sense of just giving them information. Next thing I know, I'm being asked to come into companies and teach the ICM process and teach the promise to help executives not only be better on stage, but also how to lead their organizations to another level. And I didn't know that that's where this was going to go, Justin. I mean, that's what's so exciting is that our evolution continues to be that which we discover within ourselves. And if we're not willing to take that jump or leap and say, you know what, I've successfully done this level of business. Now it's time to share more. Maybe I need to speak. Maybe I need to write. Maybe I need to coach. Unfortunately, a lot of people just say, you know what, I'm just going to do my gig and hang back and retire. And that's it. I think that's where a lot of us don't keep that purpose rolling in our lives. And if we're not willing to take that chance and risk, then we've broken a promise to ourselves.
Speaking, I think one thing that people may not get is speaking itself. This includes the travel. This includes the hotel room with the pillow that didn't work. This includes the being on stage, particularly the way you do it. You are very physical, meaning There's a lot of physicality to the speech. I mean, you're moving around, you're playing different instruments, you're very physical in your speech. You do the raptor, which is, oh my gosh, it's just too much. Oh my gosh, the velociraptor from Jurassic Park. And I think people can miss sometimes the demand that this takes on your body, the physical toll of speaking. I know health's very important to you. Walk us through some of the patterns and routines and strategies that you do with your health. And here's particularly why. As you're listening to this, Jay-Z said, "I'm not a businessman. I'm a business man." In other words, guys, we are the business, right? Like, in other words, I know we build teams and systems and scale. I get all that. But what kind of energy are you showing up with? What kind of excellence are you showing up with? If your lower back hurts and your headache, hurts and your hamstrings are too tight and you're not excellent in your energy, you have to show up, Jason, every single time. This is part of the promise, right? You're going to show up and man, you are going to light that stage on fire. You're going to light those audiences' hearts on fire. What are you doing from a physical perspective that we can learn from to keep yourself at peak physical performance?
Man, I love that question, and I appreciate it because you look so good in a tight shirt, my man. And I want to be like you,
This is the secret. You just buy a shirt about 3 sizes too small, and then all of a sudden you fill it out, and then on Instagram you do a lot of filters and you look great.
Baby Gap with Justin
Exactly
Pitts.
right.
Yeah. No, I got you. I'll say I've worked very hard to keep my body at as good a shape as it possibly can be, and even with some genetic deficiencies and able to have a six-pack, that's not going to happen for me. But I'll tell you, working very hard to make it something that's a top priority. In fact, I told you I just spoke in Wisconsin the other day, and I got back last night, and I was just wiped because I had flown in the day before. I had to fly to Minneapolis. I had to then drive 3 hours to get there to the place in Wisconsin. And then I did the gig. They had no idea I didn't sleep the night before because something was off in my mind. My son had surgery yesterday morning, and so I was worried about him. And so then I did the gig. I drove 3 hours back, got on a plane, squeezed into my seat, got home and did my routine. I just so you know, like when I was in Wisconsin, I went for a walk. I did the workout. I didn't eat anything that I shouldn't. I didn't take the yumminess of the airplane cookie or the soda. I mean, it was like, I'm dialed into what I know I need to do. I'm drinking water. I'm breathing. I'm meditating. I'm working on what needs to be worked on. I read my scriptures. Like that made me feel happy. I walked along the lake. That was a good thing. I got home last night and I did the sauna for an hour in my backyard. I did the cold plunge twice in between both of those sauna sessions. And then I did a bunch of stretching. I slept great last night, man. It was awesome. And I think with peak performance, it comes down to taking care of our bodies, taking care of ourselves. I try to do the protein. I do as much as the working out as I possibly can. I want to sweat every single day. That's part of my promise. I have a product that helps me a ton. It's called Cardio Miracle, and it actually produces nitric oxide inside your body, which is a molecule we all need. And unfortunately, it goes away as we age. And it's something that helps repair, and it fixes my vocal cords. It does a lot of good for my heart. And so there are reasons as to why we do this. Through the years, I've had to go through a lot and retire pieces because you remember I used to do Jim Carrey and I'd slam my head around and I'd flip down on the ground at the end. I had to retire that piece. I was in physical therapy because of it. I broke my leg 2 years ago. I had to shift some things in my performance. I can't dance as much as I used to, but there are still ways that we can still keep a promise to our body and to our audience. And I'm just telling you, by having those routines and those habits that we know we need to do, and when we do them, we build confidence and we perform at a higher level. I'm just glad I have those parameters for myself to meet every single day. And the one last one that I want to meet and get to is sleep. Sleep is so tough.
Yeah.
You know, we have the kids 18, 17, 16, and 12. So we're kind of in the same place with our ages. Man, they just want to talk after midnight. And you got to listen, and that's the best time. But Yeah, sleep still eludes me, so I'm working on it.
That is so good. There's so many lessons there. Going for a walk, move your body. I love your promise to sweat every single day. You know, one of my 5 things that I try and do every single day, I try and sweat. I try and just move my body and make sure that I get a sweat. And this work that you're doing with your nutrition, right? So you built habits and routines and patterns to where when you are tired and when you are sleep deprived and you are in another plane, you still don't eat the cookies and the, you know, the all the and the drink the pops. You built these promises. And I tell people you are not what you did, but you are what you repeatedly do. So in other words, yeah, we all make mistakes, we all do stupid stuff, we all eat the wrong thing here and there. But man, you are what you repeatedly do. Over time, this stuff compounds. Uh, Go just one step deeper, if you don't mind, on the nutrition supplement, because you have to get your exercise in. You have to get your nutrition tight. You gotta get your sleep. Nothing will probably have more impact on you than sleep. But once you get all those things dialed, the thing that kind of tips you over the edge sometimes is proper supplementation. So nitric oxide, you know, is such a powerful molecule. So just talk about that for one more minute. I think you call it the cardio miracle. Just explain what that is and why that one specifically stands out for you.
Well, in the 90s, a guy named Dr. Luis Ignacio received the Nobel Prize for nitric oxide discovery, and it was such a game changer. And unfortunately, the world didn't jump on the science of it. And in reality, it really does help with the vascularity of your blood flow and your arteries and so forth. And so, for anybody that's got maybe some tingling in their feet, or they might have challenges with their blood flow, those types of things, especially with taking too many medications for their heart and so forth. If you are willing to do a little bit of nitric oxide into your body, it's going to change a lot for you. And there's a lot about beets out there, and there's good things that you can do for yourself naturally that are great. But with this product that is one of the best I've ever seen, and it is the best tasting nitric oxide creation product out there. You see, nitric oxide isn't in the product. It's created in your body as a gas once the right nutrients and ingredients are put in your body. So it's got arginine and citrulline and all the right stuff, including glutamine and other good things. That this one in particular has over 55 active ingredients that are amazing, and fruits and vegetables, etc. But this is called Cardio Miracle, and it's a great company, and I've been a part of it since the beginning in a really interesting way. The reason is because my dad is the founder and formulator of it. He brought together a bunch of scientists, and he said, we've got to make a product that's nitric oxide producing, but also that tastes good. And so you just mix it in water, and it's delicious. It's changed thousands of people's lives. It especially helps people in their 40s and beyond, because we stopped producing nitric oxide naturally after about our 30s and 40s, and it really dissipates. But when you're a kid, you don't need it as much. But it really helps for healing. It helps with when I hurt my leg, I cut the curve by a third of the time. My surgeon was like, "What are you doing? Like, what is going on?" And I said, "Oh, I've got the BFRs, I've got the blood flow restriction bands. I'm doing drinking silver, and I'm doing red light therapy. I'm doing sauna and ice baths, but I'm also doing Cardio Miracle." And he's like, nitric oxide supplementation is extremely important for anyone looking to get their body in tip-top shape. So yeah, I've been working now with the company in a really cool capacity, and working with their people, helping them discover their signature moves. And how cool is it, Justin? My dad introduced me to the first people that got me all my first gigs 20 plus years ago. And he opened all those doors to help me get auditions and corporate opportunities. And now 20 plus years later, I've been running my own business for a quarter of a century. He said to me, "Hey, will you come and look at my business?" And so I started consulting and realized, oh man, I love working with your people. These are great people. They all have signature moves. We just need to put them in the right seats in the bus. Just like that book, Good to Great. And it's been amazing to watch this company continue to thrive. And yeah, so that's something I'm working on lately. That's been a really fun thing. And it's a Utah-based company. I'm so proud of my dad for being the founder and the CEO of this thing. It's amazing.
Oh, how cool. Well, I'm in. I'm always looking for those, you know, uh, products that help you get just that little bit of the edge, right? So you got to do all the foundational stuff. You got to go, you sweat, you got to go for your walk, got to lift your weights, you got to eat your food, and you got to get your sleep and your hydration. But man, there's some things that give you that, just that little bit of an edge to help you push over. So appreciate you sharing that. So, the age old question is, how do you balance all of it? Right. And specifically as a speaker, and as a entertainer, you're on the road a lot. In other words, you need to go to the people and do your thing. So your priorities are family and raising this beautiful family. How have you found that work-life balance or that work-life integration, or what strategies have you done to raise great kids as well as go out there and, conquer and slay the dragons, on the road as you've done as a speaker?
Marry the perfect woman.
So I got to tell you
I
this,
mean,
my friend calls me today and he goes, hey, will you do a coaching thing for parents? And I go, he goes, no, I'm serious. He's like, I'm serious. I'll hire you. I want to help me with my kids. He's got these younger kids. And I said, well, I go, look, it's three steps. It's super simple. I go, write these down. Step 1, you got to marry Missy. Step 2, you got to have amazing kids. And step 3, don't blow it. I said, listen, that's the formula. So sounds like you and we might have that one in common.
that's so funny. That's so right. I say, marry someone like Tammy, and and get out of the way of the kids. That's what I
Exactly
say.
right.
But candidly, for me, I don't know how well I'm doing it. I mean, I'm doing as best as I can, but I can tell you this: when I'm fully present, I'm a great dad. And it's one thing to set a goal to be a good dad, but it's another thing to make a promise to be the kind of dad any kid would want to have. And so I like to say, why set a goal and you can make a promise? It's not to say goals aren't important. Of course they are. But if you set a goal and miss it, you just set another one. Whereas if you make a promise and break it, that is a one and done. So with your kids, with your wife, with your life, what can be your non-negotiables? What are the sacred promises? The sacred goals that become promises are really fascinating to me. And I can tell you that just right now, you and I have been present with each other for an hour. It's been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't checked my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't worried about the truck that drove by. I haven't worried about the emails that I'm sure and the texts that are coming through. I'm not looking at social media. You and I are just hanging out. If we can do that with every interaction with everybody we're with, our life will feel like we're in perfect harmony. And our harmony is our integrity. And I believe that when we're perfectly present with our children and we're present with our wife, yes, quantity time is so wonderful if we can have it. Quality time is amazing, but be fully present. And that might only mean, like, if the kid comes to the door and he just wants to ask me a question, all I do is to stop working for a minute. I turn fully around, I listen, I hug, and we have a great moment. And that's 12 seconds, and that's fully present. And for some kids, that's enough.
Yeah.
And other kids need 5 hours with us, right? But I don't know how you find balance. All I know is that you set boundaries for yourself as to when we'll work, when we'll check the text. If you're driving, hopefully not looking at anything but the road. Those types of simple promises make all the difference. And I know that by making those promises for myself has made all the difference.
That's so good. That's so good. It takes true simplicity to make complex things, or true genius to make complex things simple. And so to boil it down to be present that's a lot of genius. That's a lot of wisdom. Jason, I was telling you this when we jumped on. I've watched you literally for almost 20 years now, and I'm like one of your biggest fans. I'm like your secret biggest fan. You're like Taylor Swift to me. And and I just think you are really such a gift, because one of the things that you do is, because you leaned into your giftedness, which someone could have said is your weakness, because you leaned into it, you like subconsciously give everyone else permission to lean into their courage and to lean into their gifting and to be the one they were born to be, and to make promises versus goals, to say, I'm going to make a promise to myself. And I just respect it about you. I respect how you play full out, and you get on those stages, and in your life, you play full out and say, you are special, you are unique as you are. You can lean into these things that you think are, kind of the goofy parts about you, and that's actually what makes you you and makes you stand out. it's a message that everyone in the world needs to hear. And so I just respect you a ton and admire you a ton, and just so grateful we had this time together.
Man, it means a lot coming from you because I sure admire you and I appreciate you having me on. I'm really excited for your audience to check out this episode because I know that it's going to help somebody that's sitting there thinking to themselves, how can I be just a little bit better? And in all reality, give 100%, be 100% present, and lean into that which maybe some people think is weird, because that's what makes you extraordinarily amazing. And that's how you keep the promise.
I love that. My friends, make sure you go get The Promise to the One. The Promise to the One. And I love the title. You are the one. And, you switch it from goals to promises. None of us want to break up our promises we make to ourselves or to others. So make sure you go get that book and share it with your family and read through that one. So Jason, I love you, bro. I appreciate you, respect you a ton. And man, what an honor to be able to jam with you for a few minutes.
Love you, brother. Thank you, man. This has been great.